What's up, guys? We have a banger. I already know it's going to be sick. It's from Resonance. We love these guys. They have great content. It says, "We've cleared the occupied buildings. Real battle through the eyes of Ukrainians." Like I said, it looks really cool. I haven't watched it yet, but it's brand new and they only release really cool shit. So, real quick, I'm going to start shouting out all my members or posting their, have their shout out at the end of my videos so we could just jump straight into the content. I'll introduce myself. My name is Saxon. I go by Vegas here in Ukraine. I was in the International Legion, 1st Battalion, Charlie 3 Platoon. I'm no longer in the Legion. I'm with a different team. If you are curious about or planning on coming to Ukraine or have any questions, whatever, hit me up in my email. It's linked in my my homepage and my channel, also in every description of every video I post. Let's jump into this shit.
The purpose of the operation was to clear the territory. Our assault teams had to reach the road through the grain elevator to prevent the enemy from advancing further. We did not realize how many of them were on the floors, and they were silent. When they surrendered gradually, we were a little shocked by their number. This 3-day combat operation took place in the town of New York, Donetsk region. Yes, now you will know that there is such a town in Ukraine. The Ukrainian assault group was tasked with driving the enemy out of the grain storage facility. According to intelligence, 5 occupants were holed up in the elevator, but when the infantrymen broke in, it turned out that there were 3 times as many. So the Ukrainians found themselves in a very risky situation. In this episode, you will see unique footage of the battle, a reconstruction of these events through the eyes of its participants, including Russian prisoners, and find out how it all ended. The grain elevator was the object of our attack, as the enemy was entrenched there. According to preliminary data, there were supposed to be about 5 people there. When we were watching and conducting reconnaissance, we saw that only 5.
Hey, if you ever come out here to Ukraine, always expect your, and I hate to say this because that's not how it should be, but expect your pre-op intel to be FUBAR to some extent. I mean, like they said, they thought it was 5 people, and it ends up being 3 times the amount. We've been dropped off in the wrong locations before. We've gone on for hours and hours and hours longer than they initially said we were supposed to, and based on the amount of supplies we brought for the original amount of time, based on the pre-op info we got. Anyways, just prepare for anything when you come out here.
5 enemies entered. There was a first attempt to enter and clear the...
This guy, dude, this guy was on that series we just finished, Surrounded for 67 days on the front line. This guy was the interviewer.
This elevator. There was one assault group. They entered the elevator, but the battle started immediately.
It's an RPK.
Let's go. Let's move. Come on. Hold the sectors. And most importantly, move quickly. I saw the enemy moving there.
He's got his, oh shit, it's hard to see. He's got his RPK right here, and he's got the stock folded. So he's using his, what is theoretically an LMG as in pistol form.
Kaban to Hummer, over. Get back. Shit. Roll back. Report the situation. Fire contact with the enemy. We took the fight and rolled back. Copy that. Over. This building is very complicated. We saw that we could not move forward at the moment. So we decided to pull back our group so that we would not suffer losses. When the group rolled back, we talked to them, found out what they saw inside, how many enemies were there. They said that about 4 to 5 guns were shooting at them. We added another group there. We decided that we needed to cut off the enemy so that they could not bring in reinforcements and then storm the place. So that's what we did. First, the infantrymen cleared all the buildings around the grain elevator and set up observation posts to watch the approaches around the grain.
See all those heat signatures on the top? I wonder what that is. They look like bodies almost, like hunched over, or like in a fetal position almost.
Elevator and set up observation posts to watch the approaches to prevent the enemy from coming, and then began to storm. Our tank struck first, then Bradley. Our guys, the drone operators, were great. They coordinated our actions and routes around the clock and indicated where the enemy was. But the enemy was already waiting for us. They had aerial reconnaissance, so it was very difficult for our guys to approach because there was only one way in and out. What was your task? To seize the elevator? At that time, our task was to cross the intersection behind the grain elevator. The grain elevator is a force point because we couldn't cross the intersection. What happened? Machine gun fire, ambush. It would be more accurate to say and call it a fortified point. A fortified area near the intersection. There was a machine gunner sitting there, just did not let us cross the street. Several of our groups tried, and for one group it ended very badly. For the other, a little less fatally. So after that, there was no point in crossing there anymore. It became clear that it was fatal. How long were you there and analyzing the situation? Getting data from the drone operators who were doing additional reconnaissance? About a week we spent in the grain elevator. About 3 days we saved up this information. A week? I mean, we accumulated both people and information. And what did they tell you? Just sit tight? Well, they tried to suppress the Ukrainians by other means. Mortars, artillery, drones. Then again, we rolled our group back a bit and called in a tank to encourage our guys. And send a couple of gifts to the enemy. And when the last shot of the tank was fired, our groups entered the grain elevator. There were 12 of you? There were 12 of us, but 4 of us stayed in the second position to cover the approach for another group, so there were 8 of us. After the tank's work, we were the first to enter the grain elevator and take up the defense on the ground floor. There was a tripwire mine on the stairs, but we defused it.
Good catch. Oh, shit.
After the work of our tank and Bradley, the enemy hid on the upper floors on the stairs. We repulsed the first onslaught. The firefight inside the grain elevator. They rolled back. The second assault could not be repulsed due to heavy fire from the Bradley, the tank, and there was also a drone, Baba Yaga. And with this, we had to...
I made the mistake in one of my last videos thinking that Baba Yaga was the boogeyman. It is a witch in in Slavic folklore, basically. It's not the boogeyman.
Seriously reckoned with. It was not possible to repel it. At the moment when we had already entered the staircase, the losses were much higher than in the contact battle down in the grain elevator, and this gave your group the opportunity to enter and occupy the elevator hall. Once they occupied it, there was no way out. They started shooting with us, we with them. In this case, it turns out that we were just pinned down on this staircase, and that's all. What did the enemy do? Fighting back, they took positions in the stairwells and did not give us access to them. They were throwing grenades at us. Well, we were throwing grenades back. They had an advantage in the stairwell. They did not give up for a long time. It did not give us access to go up. We stormed for a long time, even at night. And you were going up? How many floors did you have to clear? At that time, the enemies were from the 4th to the 9th floor. You had to clear 9 floors? Actually, there were 16 floors. Wow, you cleared 16 floors from the enemy at night? No, it was dawn. It was already early morning.
Still, dude.
We did not realize how many of them there were on the floors, and they were silent. A few were shooting and changing, and the rest were just sitting higher up. But when they surrendered gradually, we were a little shocked by their number. Well, I went first. You were first, and the enemy was very motivated, and there were more of them than you. Well, I say that the enemy soldiers were younger and bigger than me. They thought they could withstand our onslaught because they had been thinking for a long time about whether or not to surrender, and I'm sure they had contacted their own before we took them, while the fighting was going on around this building and then in the building. They were hoping for reinforcements. They were stalling for a long time, but it didn't work out for them. What did your command tell you at the time? Well, that help was coming. We'd get you out of there. I mean, you had communication all this time, and they were telling you that reinforcements were coming to you? They were saying that we'd have help, assuring us that reinforcements were coming. Yes. They've been promising that for over a day and a half. Who led the fight at the grain elevator? Where to throw grenades, shoot? You? Mostly the group. We did it all together. That is, we had the following. 2 stood watching, the next 2 prepared, 2 a little higher. Divided responsibilities. Someone would try to radio for help. Someone else would do something else. Sometimes we would change each other. On the 3rd day, one enemy crawled out with a severe leg wound. I gave him first aid. And a little later, the second crawled out. Well, they were very thirsty and hungry and smoking. I helped the second one too. Well, it was hard for us to believe and surrender because the command scared us with the other stories, horrors. What did they tell you? They told us all kinds of nonsense. That in captivity they mocked us.
These dudes don't even look like they had a chance to shower yet, and they're already getting pressed for interviews.
Tortured us, that everyone here was a monster, and so on. But it turned out tortured us. They told us all kinds of nonsense. That in captivity they mocked us, tortured us, that everyone here was a monster, and so on. But it turned out to be different? Yeah, the world turned upside down. What made you decide to surrender? A phrase from a soldier in your group with the call sign black. He said, "Guys, we're going..."
These are the Russians, dude. Jesus. Sorry, these are the Russians.
"Going to fight with you for about 15 or 20 minutes. Then we will go out, and this building will fall with you, and that's it." So we had no choice but to surrender. There was no point in resisting. I was talking to one of them literally at a distance of 3 meters. He was asking me for water and cigarettes, and I told him, "Come on, I'll give you some." So you worked as a negotiator. And after I gave him something to drink and eat, I told him, "You can leave. If you don't want to live, we will wipe you out. You have two choices. Either surrender or you are finished." I said, "You can leave. I'm not holding you." It was a moment of psychology. He went to the stairs, stopped, called his men, and came back. What did he tell them? "Guys, come down. Everything will be fine. No one will hurt us. I ate and smoked. That's all." Wow, my friend. You helped to capture such a group, and there were only 8 of you. There were 8 of us, yes. Then there were 6. 2 of us were wounded by a 120 mortar. We had 2 light 300s. One was hit in the leg by a piece of shrapnel, and the other in the arm. They got off easy. Their condition is normal, and they will be in the ranks with us in a couple of weeks. The men of your 425th Brigade are great. They gave us water to drink and smoke. And when our artillery started demolishing this building, and on our radio, we heard our commander say that we were no longer there, although we were there. These guys called an armored vehicle. The Ukrainians called? Yes. It came quickly, and we were evacuated under shelling. How many enemies were destroyed there? Who did not want to surrender? 3 hostiles, 2 on the stairwell, and 1 at the entrance to the grain elevator. Then the commander gave the order to retreat to the control point. We went in and on the way entered a 2-story building to check if there were enemies left there, so that another unit could enter and gain a foothold. I entered the building first and started making check shots, as we were taught in training. Thank you for teaching us. I fired 2 shots around the corner, and his stupidity was that he fired back. There was fire contact, and 1 enemy tried to escape, but our other unit was nearby, and they made it 200. The second invader surrendered, and the third, who was firing, hid behind the boards. He first said he would surrender, but then he self-destructed with a grenade. That's all. So from that 2-story building, we took 1 more prisoner. How long did the whole battle with the enemies at the elevator take?
You know there's some serious propaganda, right? If we've seen countless videos at this point of the Ukrainians taking prisoners and treating them just fine, if not going above and beyond to take care of the Russian prisoners. But you know there's serious propaganda if that Russian self-detonated, right? Pulled a grenade, stuck it next to his face. Because they must be filling his head full of shit. Like they were just going to do some awful things to him, right? Well, it's either that. He thought he was so brainwashed thinking the Ukrainians were going to do like what the Russians do to Ukrainians, but to him, right? Or he was just so Russian patriotic and refused to get taken alive. I mean, that's an option too. But I highly doubt that, considering the other guys that we were seeing that were captured. I mean, they're all pretty solid. None of them are like extraordinarily gung ho Russia till they die. You know.
3 days. 3 days of fighting in the minority? Yes. We were tired. We hadn't slept properly for 3 days. We took turns napping, but we managed. The enemy was also tired. They had a lot of 300s. The conditions there were difficult. When we first arrived there to deliver ammunition, food, water, and everything else our guys needed, it was a real hell. The enemy, out of desperation, started shelling us with all kinds of artillery. Everything was flying at us. Therefore, we were not able to bring a fresh group there.
Another common tactic that Russia uses is when they know that one of their positions has been overran, they just shell it to shit. right? Whether or not they kill their own people, they just want to get rid of as many Ukrainians as they can. They're counting their people already lost, right? Even if there's Russians still there making radio calls and asking for help and blah blah blah. At some point, the Russian commanders just say, "Fuck it, we want to kill the Ukrainians more than we want to save the Russians."
So it was decided that we should clear the positions with the groups that were already there. To avoid losses, that's exactly right. And also, while we were withdrawing those groups and bringing in fresh forces, it could cost us the positions we had taken, and then we would have to do this work all over again. Most of your fighters are people mobilized this year with no combat experience. And for half of them, this is probably their first combat mission, their first battle in life. We train them, and we see the capabilities of these people. These two 300s are soldiers who have participated in an assault not for the first time. All our groups are diluted. That is, we do not send a group of only newcomers into the battle, because this can lead to unjustified losses. It's 50-50. Also, during day and night training, we observe how fighters behave in different situations. And then we form equivalent groups of experienced fighters and new recruits. Tell me, how many combat operations have you had?
Can somebody tell me if this is Colombian camo? That's what it looks like to me, but I'm not sure.
Well, this is the first one. How long have you been participating in assault operations? This is the first time. Wow, and already such courage. What kind of training did you have in the Skilya battalion? What did they teach you in the army in general? Assaulting trenches, assaulting forest plantations, fighting in the city, both at night and in the daytime. Tactical medicine, shooting with different types of weapons. We all stick together and rely on each other from the beginning of training. We've been provided with everything we need. We have everything. During the battle, ammunition and provisions were brought in too. The command was in contact all the time. The drones were watching everything that was going on there, coordinating us. How many combat operations have you had? This was the first one, and we managed. Incredible. How many assault operations do you have? 6. You are already an experienced assault soldier. 6 assaults. And thank God, without any damage. Here in your battalion, in your assault company, what were the casualties during the fighting in New York? I don't know for the whole unit, but in my platoon, we lost 2/3 for sure. And if you are exchanged, you'll be sent back to fight, won't you? From your words, I realize that there is no way out of the Storm Z unit. Whoever got there will be used until the fatal end. I'd rather commit a felony and go to jail. I don't want to come here again in any way. Friends, please subscribe to our second backup channel, Resonance Plus.
I mean, that's saying something. This dude. This dude's saying he'd rather go. I don't know if he was already in jail or not, but he's saying he'd rather go to jail than fight for the Russians again. Okay, fair enough. That was cool, dude. Assaulting a grain elevator. The operation took 3 days. That's crazy, dude. Like, being in that close quarters, like enemies within the next rooms or the next building, and spending 24 hours, spending more than a handful of hours that close to an enemy is crazy. But 72 hours, dude, fucking nuts. And you're getting shelled, and you're taking enemy fire the whole time. That's nuts. That was really cool. Hey, shout out to all the members. Thank you guys. Seriously means the world to me. Helps me do what I do out here in Ukraine and keep bringing this content. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.